I'm very aware that I am a generational cycle breaker. I am activating a lot of other young people to break certain cycles. And when I say that, I mean cycles of poverty. You can break out of that. And if you want something different, if you want to pursue education, you can, and we will help you.
Welcome to the Philanthropy Masterminds podcast, brought to you by DonorSearch, the show that takes you inside the lives of thought leaders, innovators, and change makers in fundraising, philanthropy, and civil society. I'm your host, Jay Frost. In this episode, we speak with Yasmine Arrington Brooks, founder of ScholarCHIPS and one of the top 10 CNN heroes of 2023. Since 2010, her organization has provided renewable scholarships, book awards, and mentoring to college-bound youth with incarcerated parents. We speak with her about her discovery at age 15 that there were no scholarships dedicated to young aspiring students like herself with incarcerated parents, arguably among the most vulnerable and in need, and how she developed a program that now provides a way for those like her to attend and graduate from college. Thank you so much, Yasmine, for being willing to talk. And again, congratulations on being honored for the work you have been doing for so long, and I know are planning to do into the future. But for those who don't know much about your work, can you tell us a little bit about the organization, about ScholarCHIPS?
Yes, absolutely. And Jay, thank you so much for having me. This is really, really exciting to speak with you. I am the founder and executive director of a grassroots DC-based 501c3 organization called ScholarCHIPS. And the CHIPS is an imperfect acronym. It stands for Children of or Children with Incarcerated Parents. And our mission is to provide college scholarships, mentoring, mental health supports, and a robust support network to children of incarcerated parents, or more specifically, college-bound young adults who have incarcerated parents, inspiring them to complete their college education. So that's in short who we are and what we do.
Where did that whole journey start for you? How did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, so it started when I was fairly young. My junior year of high school, I had some peers I'm very much a nerd, and I'm proud of that. And I had peers, they were very well aware that I was like very engaged in class and in school. And so they would say, Yasmine, you should really think about applying for LearnServe, or, you should really check out LearnServe. I had no idea what they were talking about. And I Googled, I researched LearnServe, and LearnServe is still around to this day. It is another nonprofit organization, also based in DC. And what LearnServe does is takes or welcomes teenagers, high school students from schools across DC, Maryland, Virginia, public schools, private schools, Catholic schools, and introduces us and teaches us about, well, I guess not us, I'm not a teenager anymore, but them about social entrepreneurship. And that was a completely new concept to me at the time. And it really opened up a whole new world for me about what was possible. And throughout it's a school year long program. So from like September or October all the way through June, really, like May, June. And they have a curriculum that they take us through, and we met twice a month in person at School Without Walls, by Foggy Bottom over there by, I think it's George Washington University. And we would just sit and talk and learn, okay, what is social entrepreneurship? What are all the different ways what can that look like? And they would bring in people who had either founded their own organizations or were a part of corporations and businesses that had some type of social mission. And then in the program, they challenged us And the first question they asked us was, what pisses you guys off? And that we were like, what? Like, what are they talking about? And so our cohort leader said, we want you to just take some time to observe look into your personal lives, your home lives, your community, your schools, and identify at least one social issue that you see that makes you upset or makes you want to see some type of change. And then they took us kind of through that journey of like, as if we were creating a business or basically a solution. And so they challenged us after we identified that issue to do some research and then to come up with our own idea about how to solve that issue. So that's sort of how, the research process is how this kind of came together. So the issue that I identified was mass incarceration and the prison industrial complex, literally, as you shared earlier. And I began to research the issue, but one of the reasons I chose it is because my father has been in and out of jail and prison literally my entire life to this very day. And so it hit home for me, but I just had, I don't know, I just had some type of sense or feeling that there were others that have experienced this. And then I began to see these just astronomical statistics about young people. Well, really just the United States, like, for example, that the United States incarcerates more people than any other country. That was, I was awestruck, and not in a good way, by that reality. And then I saw other statistics, like, for example, over 2 million, the statistic changes slightly depending on the source, but basically over 2 million young people in the United States currently at any given time have or have had an incarcerated parent. And the number gets higher, like for people in the United States, like between the ages of, birth and 18 years old. Like, so anyway, I was like, oh, it was almost as if I felt like a ton of bricks had hit me. And I realized, wow, there are really so many other people who have had this experience like I have. And then at the same time, my maternal grandmother, who raised me predominantly, who raised me and my two brothers, was helping me to research online different scholarships that I could apply for, because this was my junior year of high school. So I was preparing, for my senior year and for college. So we were looking up all these scholarships, and one evening, because we always had our like evening talks, either before dinner, after dinner, or during dinner. And she said, Yasmine, there are so many niche and creative scholarships out here, but I don't see any specifically for young people like yourself who have incarcerated parents. So my grandmother was the one that had the aha moment. I just sort of kept her observation in my mind. And when I was going back and forth to LearnServe, then they say, oh, by the way, we want you all to come up with a social venture, is what they called it. And you have to pitch this idea. And like, oh, okay. And I really just wanted to get through it. I didn't, when I was initially going through LearnServe, my hope and my goal was that I would finish the program so that LearnServe has this cool offering for teenagers where if you finish the program, you have the opportunity to study abroad for about 2.5 weeks. And I wanted to go to Zambia, Africa, which did happen. But yeah, right. It totally just cool and incredible. And I had a sponsor and everything. But anyway, that was my initial reason why I wanted to get involved. But little did I know that me going through the program, that ScholarCHIPS I would basically, my grandmother and I would conceive of this idea and that I would sort of bring it to life. And the last thing I'll say is that at the time, LearnServe had a partnership with Ashoka, specifically with Ashoka's youth venture. And at that time, I was only 15 or 16 years old. They gave Ashoka's Youth Venture gave me $1,000 seed grant to launch ScholarCHIPS. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, okay, this is getting real really fast. And so now I actually have to do something. And anytime, even at that age, I kind of understood the concept of stewardship. So if somebody, says, okay, I'm giving you this and this is what I want it to be used for, I take that seriously. So that is how it all began.
There's so much to ask about in there. But before I jump into asking more about the organization and the work, I want to ask you about your grandmother. She sounds like a really special person. And for all the people who, like you said, after you felt that ton of bricks fall on you and you recognize that you were not alone, which is something else I'd love to hear about, there was a person there for you. Not everybody has that. Would you tell us a little bit about your grandmother?
Yes, absolutely, Jay. I absolutely love my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, but specifically my maternal grandmother, my mom's mom, who raised me. She is, I think of the song, even though the actual meaning of the song might be a little different, but but I think it's Diana Ross, "I'm Every Woman." My grandmother is truly was every woman for me and my brothers. She is a woman of faith, and she took literally every Sunday. She took me and my brothers to church. We were very involved in church. We were in the choir, like we were in the children's choir, and then the youth and young adult choir, and I became an usher. They call it a junior usher when I was young. I was an announcement clerk. My grandmother taught me how to, before I even really got into preschool and first grade, second grade, all that. She taught me how to read and write. And that was really a major game changer, of course, for me and my brothers. And I was very, very young. She would sit me. I used to love to jump in her bed because she had when you're so small like that and you love your parent and, you just want to be around them all the time. And so I used to just love to just crawl up in her bed and, snuggle with her. And she would teach me, we would have those, children's books that you could flip through. So she started reading them to me initially. And then I would be like, Grandma, I want to read you the book, let me read the book. So I started to read the books to her. Then she pulled out the newspaper. I think it was the Washington Post at the time. And we would go through articles, like parts of articles, and she would help me to pronounce words that I didn't know. And then any words that I was learning, she would have me to write them. She's a teacher, by the way. Her background is in education and early childhood education. That has been her entire career. To this very day, she's the director of an early child care center. So she just has a passion for kids and for education. And so that is sort of where I got my passion for and understanding the importance and the freedom and the knowledge and the fun, that comes along with learning new things and reading and all of that. Yeah. And she also, I'll say this, she sacrificed a lot. She was a single woman, a single grandmother prior to me coming into the picture, unfortunately. And I know my grandmother's okay with me sharing this. She had gone through a divorce and she was single, raising me and my two brothers. And then my mother was around unfortunately, my mother passed when I was 13. And my brothers were even younger. Our middle brother, we're 5 years apart. So they were very, very young when our mom passed. And so it really was just grandma. For me, grandma was all I knew. And then when my brothers turned a certain age, they left to live with their father. But I was with grandma the entire time. And I didn't My father, of course, wasn't really around, and then mom was gone, and there was really, and even my grandfather, like my grandmother was all she stepped into a lot of the different roles until I began to get out in the world and get these people called mentors and and all of this. But she always kept a positive. She was very positive, and she was very encouraging, and she was very supportive. Like whatever I wanted to do, if I wanted to be in a play, when I was in middle school, I was in the play called The Wiz, and I I wanted to be Dorothy, of course, but I ended up being they cast me as Glinda the Good Witch. And
Oh, yeah.
you know, and so my grandmother, I don't know how she did it. She would always get these amazing costumes. Wherever she had to go, whatever she had to do, she found these costumes. So I just had this beautiful ball gown of a dress, for my role as Glinda the Good Witch, which was only one scene, but I killed that scene. I did that. Well, maybe I shouldn't use that terminology, but let's say I blew that part out of the water. And then, like when I was in elementary school, I remember we used to do a lot of historical reenactments, and I don't remember exactly the figure that I was. I think I was either a Sojourner Truth. I think I was Sojourner Truth, and she bought me this like old time outfit, and I had that hat like this. I don't even know what it was called. It really looks like a shower cap. But anyway, she was able to find these costumes, and just she was just so supportive. Anything that I needed. We always had clean uniforms for school, and she was there for all of the programs. And she also showed us the importance of family, even though our family was sort of unconventional. And almost every Saturday, she would take us to Blockbuster. I know that Gen Z, they have no idea what Blockbuster is, but it's basically Netflix in person form, where Jay, I know you remember Blockbuster. You walk in, and it's just a world full of movies all over, all on all the walls. And grandma would say, okay, you guys go pick out go pick out like two or three movies. And we would all go pick out different movies, and a big bucket of popcorn and soda and all that kind of stuff. And we would go home, and we would lay like a blanket or something on the floor, and we would all sit in the living room and just watch movies for hours. And so those are some of the formative memories that I have of childhood. And even though, my grandmother, we didn't have much, but she just made it didn't feel like we were really lacking anything, because of how much effort she put into showing us, what it looks like to get together and spend time as a family.
That's it really does sound like an amazing, warm, loving home where you start with a focus on reading together, which is so important for kids. And not everybody has that, regardless of what their home is like,
Yes.
where their parents are or what's happening. That's so instrumental. And it sounds like that was a big influence on you, because you also talked about it being fun. So it wasn't just, this is something you need to do because you need to succeed, or you need to change your life, or you need to be a better kid. But it was fun to read. That must have influenced your interest in education. I mean, clearly you had an ability, but not everybody has an appetite. You developed an appetite, or else you wouldn't have been thinking about college when you were 15 and going through an entrepreneur program. So the spark, was that just at the home? How much was also you just wanting to do something different? Did you have a vision, even before the entrepreneur program, of what that future might be like?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Jay. I definitely always wanted to do something different. I I really don't know how to describe it. And to be honest, I don't know. I don't always know where that kind of hunger or drive came from. I mean, I was aware that my grandmother, I was aware that there were struggles behind the scenes, so to speak, like, financial challenges and these kinds of things. I just, but I had always had that curiosity. That, I think that's the word. I always had this curiosity about family, about life, about, I would think things like, I wonder how it is to live in this country, or, because when I was that age, 15, 16, when I was a teenager, and another thing I'm very grateful for, I had these amazing opportunities to travel when I was very, very young. I was fortunate to, and of course, this is a testament to one of my teachers, Miss Ashton, who was my one of my math teachers in middle school. I had opened up to her about what was happening in my personal life and family life. I just really trusted her, and we had a really good relationship. And I knew that she was really passionate about education because, first of all, I never really was a fan of math, but she made me love math. And I was like, anybody who can make me love math, there's somebody that, I can I can talk to. And so when I told her about my story and all that, and I wanted to go to college, she told me about the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation. And because of her, I told my grandmother, we applied, I got in, and with Jack Kent Cooke, they still to this day have a young scholars program for middle school. Like you start in middle school and then you transition you continue in the program as a high schooler. And so I ended up going to Costa Rica for 6 weeks.
Wait, how old were you when?
I was like, I had to be 15, 16 years old.
Wow.
And it forced me, of course, I was with a family, and it forced me to, I was taking Spanish class in school, in high school, but it forced me to, no, I was a little, yeah, I think I was like 15, 16. It forced me to like learn Spanish and speak it. Because, if you're living in a country, that speaks a different language, it's very hard to navigate. You may be able to find a couple people who speak English or a little bit, but, it forces you to immerse yourself into the culture, as you know. So that was eye-opening. And then Zambia, I went to Zambia, Africa through LearnServe at the same time. And so I was being exposed. So it started with me reading about places, and yes, you're right. Like what happened was, because my grandmother, like it was a fun, like I saw it as a fun thing. So it got to the point where I would be reading, like I used to read books like all day, as a child and as a young person. And honestly, I really need to pick that back up. Like I need to pick up reading for fun as an adult. But I would read, like, for example, what was that series, House on the Prairie? Oh. I would be reading like House on the Prairie and all of these, kind of series and these books like late at night. And I would have that little night light. And it got so bad that one day I woke up and I went to school and I couldn't see the writing on the, at that time it was a blackboard. I couldn't see the writing on the blackboard, and I had to get glasses. But it was probably because I was reading so much in the dark with this little, you know what I'm talking about, with the little night light thing. So anyway, that's how it started, was just having curiosity and a lot of exposure. Right. And I just kept wanting more. Like, honestly, Jay, my real dream life is just to travel the world and just meet people, learn about their culture, try their food, try their garments. Like that is the life that I hope that I can live at some point, is to be able just to do that.
Wow. Well, I'm imagining that for a lot of people, they don't even have a concept of that. And you developed it both because of the home you were in, but also because of that natural curiosity, you just fed into that. When you made this kind of realization later through the entrepreneur program about what, as you say, really pissed you off, mm-hmm. I have a feeling you always knew what that was, but it sounds like somebody gave you the space to speak out about it and then to form a solution to it. And that I can imagine that one of the things you must have been thinking about is, like you said, all the other people who are living through this experience, both the incarcerated, of course, themselves, but the kids. who had nothing to do with that. They were just trying to be kids. So can you take us back to kind of that moment about that realization that you were not alone and talk about what that meant and how that's fueled you a little bit?
Sure. Like I initially when I, when I came across those statistics, particularly, there are 2.3 million young people in the United States who've had an incarcerated parent or who have an incarcerated parent. That was just really mind blowing for me now, but especially at that age. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean that there are millions of us? Like, that's how I was thinking. And so there was just so much going through my mind. And also at the same time, when we say prison industrial complex, that it's a loaded term, but there's so much going on there that a lot of people even now are not aware of. Like, for me, and this is definitely might be a controversial statement, but it's true, and I would stand behind it. Now, this I will say, from what I have learned and what I know, to me, the prison industrial complex in America is the new slavery. It is a form of slavery, and what a lot of people do not know is that in a lot of prisons throughout America, that is our new industrial workforce, for lack of a better term. So things that people don't even realize: school uniforms, license plates, a lot of different products and things that we utilize here in this country that aren't produced in, abroad, like in China or Vietnam or where have you. Those are being produced by people who are incarcerated in this country. And then I learned things like, well, for those who are incarcerated, if they're getting, paid or where have you, it's cents on the dollar. It may not even be $1 an hour. You couldn't, even though they're incarcerated, and then they have, and these are things I know, I'm just sharing it with audience for those who are listening who may not know. Commissary, what they call it, which is like their grocery store, for lack of a better term. And so if imagine you're a woman and you're incarcerated and you're on your menstrual cycle, and you need to buy some pads, if you can even do that. And let's say you don't have family members on the outside who are contributing to your personal fund, and you only rely on the money that you're making from producing certain products. If you're making 75 cents an hour and you want to go buy one pad, let's say the pad is $5, you may or may not have that. So you may have to choose between, well, you know what? And the food that they give, is not all that great. And so you say, well, I've got to decide between whether I want to buy a tampon or whether I want to buy some ramen noodles, oodles and noodles. To me, I do understand the concept of, I guess, dealing with the repercussions of your actions. And that's if you're quote unquote guilty, right? Whatever. There are so many things that are like inhumane and wrong about the system itself. And not only that, but those impacts affect the people that are connected to that person as they say, on the outside. So all of these different things that they're going through, and don't add the element of mental health challenges. That's a whole nother conversation. And so it goes much deeper than just, oh, this person is a criminal, or, it just is. There's so many layers to it. And so when I learned these things, I was like, this is not right. This is unjust. This is not. and what a lot of us who work in this space will say, which is true, that our correctional system is not rehabilitative, it's punitive. So our prison system is built with this idea of punishment. But even after you've served your time, people are still serving time, when they're quote unquote released. And how is it that we can incarcerate people for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, whether it might have been murder, it might not have been. And then you basically, the person their life is, they're living their entire lives incarcerated. And then we let them out at 75, like, okay, have a good life. What? So all of these things that are happening that a lot of Americans don't even realize. There are peoples whose lives are wasting away, and families that are missing out on spending time with their dads, with their uncles, with their aunts, with their grandmas. And there are all these things that they have to deal with that usually when they come out, whether they realize it or not, in a lot of cases, they're institutionalized. And so for those who decide, like, you know what, I'm gonna live a different life, I'm never going back to that, they have to make conscious efforts to, like, basically retrain their minds to not think institutionalized, if that makes any sense. So anyway, I went way off there. Like, I went on one of my soapboxes, but all of this I was learning at that age. And I was like, whoa, there's something that has to be done. But I felt so overwhelmed because I was like, how can I even begin to make change with a system that is a monstrosity that has so many players? And here I am, I'm not wealthy, I don't have stocks and bonds and all these things. How can I even begin to make a difference? And so that the answer became, for me, I can start where I'm at. And so for me, I was, like you said, I was trying to find the resources, the finances and the resources, so to afford a college education. And then I began to learn all of the barriers and challenges to even get through the door, to go to college, to afford a college education. And I'm like, okay, well, if there are millions of other young people like myself who are in this predicament, then maybe I could start a program to, like, bring us together so that we can help each other. So that's the long answer to that discovery.
Oh, no, thank you for that. I mean, it also strikes me that the system you described, that many people aren't familiar with without hearing that story, that's not one just visited upon the incarcerated, but on their families. And all the way from the economic reality of if they are earning anything within a prison, it's certainly a very little to pay for menstrual products or a box of ramen noodles. And that doesn't leave any money for the kids who might be on the outside. But that means that system that the kids on the outside have been growing up in also must feel a bit confining in terms of ability to talk about it without any kind of repercussions or fear about, being ostracized potentially or being characterized in different ways by different people. But that then you found this way of thinking about it that was not only for yourself, but for others. And I know that led to the founding the organization, but it also enabled you to just go and get the education yourself first. So clearly you were doing well in school, but you still had a financing issue too. How did you find the financing to go off to school? And that was at Elon University, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. So how did you make that journey yourself and then be able to use that experience to then set up these scholarships?
That's a great question, Jay. Great question. Well, I will say this. I do have some of my father in me. And my dad, he does despite the reality, of him being like a repeat offender, there are some good qualities about him, and one of those being that he can. I don't know. He can draw money out of a rock or whatever you want to say. Like he is very resourceful, and he's So I have that, like, I feel like I have this innate hustle in me, and in a good way. I use it for good. I use my powers for good, right? And so I just, man, my whole junior year, well, part of my junior and all my senior year of high school, literally the schedule was school, homework, scholarships. Every school, homework, scholarships. I was applying for scholarships every week. And fortunately, I'm just so grateful that the people who were behind the desk, who were reading my essays, and applications, that they saw my hunger and my thirst, like my desire for higher education, and that I really did want to go to college, and that I was going to take advantage of that opportunity in a positive way, and do all of the things that you do while you're in college. And because of that determination, that grit, and my relentlessness when it came to applying for scholarships, I ended up getting so many scholarships, Jay, that I didn't really have any student loans at all. I didn't have to take out loans. And then with the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful for people who like Jack Kent, the late Jack Kent Cooke, who had this kind of vision, who was able to, like, he started from humble beginnings, and he used to sell encyclopedias door to door with his dad. He went from that to, of course, communications was a part of his life and passion, and owning different teams, one of them being the Washington Commanders, formerly the Washington Redskins. What he did was he created an endowment so specifically for young people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, that they would have the opportunity to go to college. And so what was happening was I was literally a scholar in all of these different scholarship programs, and I could go down the list. I'll just say a few of them. The College Success Foundation, which they have at least 3 or 4 different locations where they're based: Washington, D.C., Washington State, and a few others. And then the AXA Foundation, the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, and numerous others. So I was able to see from like the student scholars perspective how these scholarship programs worked, and how some of them would pair us with, advisors or academic advisors or mentors and all of this. And then I began to realize that some of these foundations, in a lot of cases, have endowments that were given by or established by people who had means, who had amassed or accumulated or earned a certain amount of wealth, whether it was passed down from family or whether they were the first generation to do it. And so I saw how it worked, and I saw how beneficial it was while I was in college, because what it meant, for example, for me, because I had an abundance, I had an overflow of scholarships, which is very unusual, particularly for somebody like myself. Because I had an overflow, I was actually almost every semester I was getting refund checks. I was getting refund checks, and I was like, whoa, okay, so, now I don't have to pay for my tuition out of my pocket, which wouldn't have been possible anyway. I couldn't afford room and board, right? All of that was already covered. And now now I'm able to get a check for $1,500 per semester, where when I began to realize, when I realized, like, yo, I'm really a broke college student. I have nothing. I was able to use the monies to buy groceries, or to go to Target and buy toiletries, like very basic things that we don't think about, or even buy a new outfit or something, like not to go crazy, but just to, okay, well, yeah, I want some, it's cold now. I need some boots for the winter. And it just made total sense to me. I was like, wow, because of these opportunities I've been given, because of the resources and the bit of overflow that allow me to survive, like, college survival, literally, I was like, this really works. And so it began to just make that much more sense to me, where it was like, okay, I have to now, I began to feel a sense of responsibility. And when I kept hearing in college, pay it forward, terms like this. And I said, since I've been given this opportunity, and I began to see how when I would say I'm a student at Elon University, and I would see like the person's eyes, like, wow, Elon and all of this, right? All of the things in society. I saw how it was opening doors for me to get internships and scholarships, and the list goes on. I said, you know what? This experience has been so meaningful and impactful for me. I have to open the door. Like, I have to go back and help other young people who otherwise they would probably just assume, like, I can't afford, they might just assume, oh, well, I can't afford a college education, or there's no way that I'm going to be able to do X or do Y, while I'm in college, or if I can even get there. And so that I'm basically recreating in my own way what I experienced. And as the saying goes, paying it forward and helping, opening up the door that was opened up for me to help particularly young people who are affected by parental and mass incarceration to get this indescribable experience that you really don't necessarily get as a young adult anywhere else.
Can you talk a little bit now, just for a second, about the program itself? You've had, oh my gosh, I think you've raised close to $500,000 so far.
Yes.
And how many people have been through the program?
So far, 88 scholars.
But I know your vision is lots of people, and dollars only stretch so far, and you're already helping these folks a lot. But can you describe the program a little bit for people? And I mean, from not just how you're selecting people, how people are finding it, which is so important, but also how you're helping them, not just financially. That's really important, but also so they don't feel, again, alone, because the experience of going to school, especially if your experience is not like a lot of your fellow students, you may feel like there are certain things you can't talk about, or experience is different. Or so how do you help them both in terms of making sure they have the material resources so they can be their best selves, but also so they feel like they're part of that community they've chosen?
Absolutely, Jay. Well, ScholarCHIPS, we have the very practical, obvious support, which is, of course, which are the scholarships and the book awards. And currently, the scholarship per student per year is $3,500. And we actually recently just increased that amount within the last year. It was $2,500. And then our book award is currently $1,000. And way back when we started, it was $250. And so,
and not to interrupt, but for people, like when you talked about things before that people might not know, the price of an education now is high. I think most of us recognize that, but the price of books is also astronomical.
Yeah, yes. And it was when I was in undergrad, and that was between 2011 and 2015. So I can only imagine. I see some of it with our scholars, but nothing is, with, I guess, inflation and economics, anything that's going up is unlikely anytime soon to decrease. It's just going to continue to increase in terms of the pricing and all. So I will say this, that what I realize is honestly, $3,500 per year, when most colleges and universities, not including community colleges, if you're paying, if you've got a price tag of 30 to $45,000 a year, that's really a drop in the bucket. And so there's a lot more work to be done. There are a lot more resources that are needed. But however, I do realize, based on my own experience, that every dollar counts, every amount adds up. And so if our scholars do like I did, which they usually do, where they accumulate, they apply for multiple scholarships, they add up and it just it chops down the tree. So we have the scholarships and book awards, which the goal, of course, is to continue increasing those amounts and eventually provide, partial, if not full scholarships, just like a Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, right? And then we have an emergency fund. What I realized when I was in school and I didn't even drive a car at the time, but there are so many unexpected challenges and emergencies that can come up when you're in college. And like the COVID pandemic, I had never experienced anything like that when I was in school. And so to see our students go through that, that was very difficult for a lot of our scholars. And so that was where we said, okay, we need to have some type of emergency fund where if their car breaks down or their laptop breaks down, it's to the point of no repair and all of that we need to have some additional funding and resources that scholars can tap into so that they will be able to continue their education and not say, oh, well, I got to drop out and I have to start working full time to pay to fix my car or something like that. And then we have a mentoring aspect where we pair our scholars with quote unquote mentors. And we train the mentors to be non-judgmental, active listeners, and to just allow the scholar to express themselves, and of course, naturally, share advice and wisdom, but not to the point where you want the young person to ultimately come up with their own solutions. You don't want to like feed them all the solutions, or kind of like you don't want to make them feel like you're not listening to how they're feeling and what they're going through, right? So we train our mentors to have a certain kind of approach and mindset, to be open-minded. And to remember that they were once there before, even if maybe they make a decision they may not agree with, that they still be sort of kind of open-minded or say, oh, okay, I'm trying to think. So we've got the mentorship. Oh, and then we have, there's this we put a lot of emphasis on building community and network, like, safety network. And so we have a lot of in-person, virtual, yes, but also in-person events or activities where scholars can meet each other and they usually end up exchanging phone numbers and all of that and emails. And we just do a lot of different things. Sometimes it's educational based. We have workshops, various conferences, a couple of conferences a year. Like we have a college readiness conference. And we have a college success, kind of conference and all. And we cover a number of topics: financial management, career planning, resume building, social branding and social media, things like that young people, just to help them to not only because I realize in the ScholarCHIPS network, especially the mentors and people who we bring in to facilitate these workshops and webinars, realize that in order for our scholars to be successful and to continue growing and being, going when they're transitioning from undergrad to if they want to go to graduate school or in their careers and family and so on and so forth, that they need to have these tools not just the scholarship money and all, but, to understand the importance of mental health and being exposed to the things like therapy, having a therapist, possibly having, if you want to have a coach, how to manage, how to create a budget, how to manage finances and things like that. And even we've had workshops on becoming a first-time home buyer and homeowner, because I myself, I've had family members. My great grandfather purchased his home, and my grandmother, through when she was married, purchased a home. But that was not a skill or knowledge that was actually taught to me. I had to go out and find the information and learn it. And so, yeah, like all of these things we provide our scholar. Oh, and also laptops. That's the last thing two things finally I'll share is when I was going through school. You can't, from my perspective, be successful in college and not have the up-to-date technology to especially when now the classes are hybrid most of the time now. And like ever since COVID, folks were like, we could, I could teach this class from home, And so, a lot of students and they're, doing their homework and writing their papers and taking virtual classes. I don't want them working on, trying to do this with really, really old laptops that just are slow, or, their screen is cracked. So I make it a point, spanking brand new laptops that are up to date, that have enough storage and all that good stuff. And of course, they love it. They love the laptops. And we also just started an alumni fund, because what I'm seeing and what I'm learning is that with most, or with a good number of careers, or even post-secondary, with I'll say advanced education and students wanting to get graduate degrees and advanced degrees, that you usually have to, in most cases, take some sort of exam or test, and get a certain score so that you can even be considered, or you can even apply or be considered for some of these programs. And those cost, to take the LSAT, to take the MCAT, and all of these, ATs. There's costs that come along with that. Some of these exams cost $300, $400, $500 per session. And if you don't get the score that you want to get, you've got to take it again, right? And then they've got to buy the books, to study and try to find a tutor. You're talking about thousands and thousands, a couple, if not more, thousands of dollars that are most of our scholars, and on some days myself, that we don't even have. So I realized like the importance of community. And when you put dollars together and resources together, you can really make a difference and push, where some of our scholars, for example, some of them want to become lawyers. Some of them want to become OBGYNs and prenatal nurses. If it were not for support through ScholarCHIPS or other sources, or mentors who have already charted those paths and overcome certain obstacles, then they might just give up. And it's like, but, I just saw a report on the news not too long ago that there's a shortage of primary care physicians across the country. So, I really want, even more so, I really want for people in the spaces of post-secondary and higher education to look at the systems that are currently in place and whether it makes sense to keep these same traditions or systems that have been since 1950, whenever, is that going to work or might it be harmful for the upcoming generations of our workforce? Because I don't see it being sustainable for the long term. So anyway, again, I went on another soapbox, but that is the program. Those are the kind of supports and things that we offer. But of course, there are many challenges with the work. We have to build capacity and sustainability. We do not yet have an endowment, which is a little scary. I am currently a staff of one, which is a little scary. So there's a lot of things that need to happen, which is why I'm very grateful for that moment, that CNN Heroes moment. And because of it, and because of, having opportunities like this, Jay, to share my story and ScholarCHIPS and why the work is so important, because we just need more resources and support so that we can make ScholarCHIPS sustainable for many years to come. Because fortunately, but also unfortunately, these types of supports for young people, whether they have incarcerated parents or not, is really needed if we're going to have a thriving workforce in multiple industries in this country in the years to come.
Are there other foundations joining you in this? Are they seeing some of the stigma fall? And so they see your example, they're joining you both financially, but also kind of offering their own scholarships that partnered with yours, make it possible for people to make that journey that you've made and your scholars are making?
Yes, there are some there, and I'm very grateful for them. The K. Fritz Foundation has been a tremendous supporter of ScholarCHIPS since my LearnServe days. Like I was telling K. Fritz about what I wanted to do with ScholarCHIPS when I was in high school. And so a few years later, they began to, of course, we had to apply, and we've built healthy, really good rapport with their staff, and so they've supported us. The Scheidel Foundation has been a supporter of ScholarCHIPS. Enterprise Holdings, they have an initiative called the Road Forward Initiative, and they've been supporting ScholarCHIPS. And so, and also individuals, we've had some community individuals and giving circles like Giving Together, the Black benefactors, and many others who know what we're doing. They see the work in action. Like, we're not just talking, we're not just blowing smoke. We're actually really doing the work, but we need the resources and support to continue. And so they have wrapped their arms around ScholarCHIPS and have partnered with us. However, as ScholarCHIPS, as if we want to increase the number of scholarships, the amounts, the number, if we want to increase the young people who we're supporting, it's going to require more. And so, my goal and my hope is to get to like the NBA Foundation and, some of the foundation, like Magic Johnson has a foundation, right? Like, at this point, we need a multi-million-dollar endowment, basically, is what I'm getting at. And every amount counts, every grant counts, but there's so much more work that needs to be done. And like I said, ultimately, to build sustainability and capacity, ScholarCHIPS is, so let me say this, and it's all respect to the work and everybody who's been a part. ScholarCHIPS is still in Little League. We're still in little leagues, but it's time for us to go to the NBA, the NFL, like, to go to the Super Bowl. Like, that is like the next step in terms of increasing impact and helping that many more young people to see college as a possibility, to know that it's possible, to have the funding and resources to go and complete that part, the education, and then to think about other possibilities and be introduced to other industries that they may not even have ever seen anybody in their families or in their communities be engaged in. And that just may be whatever they're introduced to in college. That just may be the path that they end up taking, to help people in whatever field that may be. you
So
know?
what if you look out, 10 years from now, something like that, imagining that this continues to grow, the impact both of ScholarCHIPS, but also other partner organizations, what does that look like? Paint me a picture of what a world looks like in which you're really addressing this problem the way you'd like to see it addressed.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, from scholarships perspective, it would look like, again, like I said, having an endowment for one, because to me, even though that's not the answer of all, that's not necessarily the end all be all, but it does secure a certain, it does give a sense of security and financial long haul, so to speak, that the mission and the work can and will continue beyond me and beyond any volunteers and staff, because just tis the circle of life, right? And so that's one. Two, having locations in multiple states, going from being a local program to, from a local regional program to a national program, but also internationally. I'll say this. I have a dear friend named Francis who is in Uganda, and he too works and he, oh my goodness, his program will bring tears to your eyes. It's called Wells of Hope. And Francis works with and supports young people who have incarcerated parents. And in most cases, in Uganda and other countries, not just in Africa, right, but especially there, when they have a parent who's incarcerated, they usually end up becoming orphans because they don't have any other parents, or they may not have a grandparent that's either still alive or that's able to care for them and make sure they, go to school and all of these things. So he has a building facility where he takes children in, and they have classes and they have teachers and they're still learning and going to school. But he works with the grade school children. So by the time they're ready to their quote unquote college age, there's no money, there's no resources for them to go to college. And I remember 2 or 3 years ago, and it stays with me. Francis said, Yasmine, we have 10 young people who want to go to college locally. But he's like, but I don't have, the program itself, we're not there yet. We don't have the resources or the the money to send them to their local universities. And it just broke my heart. I was like, when I know that that ScholarCHIPS is doing it on another level, on a higher level, is that we're able to do this work not only nationally but internationally. Because I shouldn't say that, but I wish that when Francis told me, and he showed me their profiles, I know that they're real. When he showed me these young people's profiles, I wish that we could have been able to fund their college education, because $3,500 or $5,000 here would have covered their tuition for a year or 2 years. So that's the kind of impact, that's the kind of vision and impact that I'm talking about.
And so let me ask you this. You just mentioned your grandmother again. We started the conversation talking about her and also about your father. And
yes,
you're at this point now where you're growing this activity. You're seeing the impact in a big way. What do they say about what you have achieved?
Who, my grandma? And did you say my dad or just grandma? I'm laughing for a reason. My grandmother is just proud. I think my grandmother's very happy. I just think from what I see and what I hear, it does her heart well. It just does her heart well, because I was talking to her. Yeah, actually, my grandma. I know when this airs, it won't be probably this day or this time, but December 13th is my grandmother's birthday. And I was literally sitting with her on her birthday, and we were having a conversation, and she was saying, Yasmine, she was like, she's just so happy. And, with the CNN Heroes was like it really was a big breakthrough for me and for ScholarCHIPS. And she said, Yasmine, there's no way that we could have imagined anything like this 5 or 10 years ago. And she said, just imagine what it will look like in another 5 to 10 years. Right. And she was just smiling. And, she had like church members that I grew up with calling her and like, oh, we saw Yasmine on TV and all this kind of stuff. So she's just really proud. My dad, he's a little bit more stubborn. He's proud, but he just has a different perspective. Like, for example, he'll usually say to me, well, if it wasn't for me, there would be no ScholarCHIPS. And to an extent, exactly, like to an extent, what he's saying is true. I wouldn't necessarily be proud of that, but anyway, my dad he has a very different line of thinking. But I think that he's also, proud. He's proud of me, and he's proud that I'm his daughter, and that I've chosen to, activate my life and the gifts and skills and, powers, or so to speak, that I have, use it for good, use it for good. So I think they're both proud and happy, and I'm happy that I can make my family, that I can make them proud and be a good representation. But also, I definitely see myself as a disruptor. I am a disruptor. If you're not ready for it, it can make you a little uncomfortable. But I also I'm very aware that I am a generational curse or generational cycle breaker. And so what I'm actually also doing on a more deeper, even spiritual level, dare I say, is I am activating a lot of other young people and people to break certain cycles. And when I say that, I mean cycles of poverty, cycles of lack of education, right? Like, you can break out of that. And if you want something different, if you want to pursue education, you can, and we will help you.
The Philanthropy Masterminds podcast is underwritten by DonorSearch, the world leader in donor intelligence solutions. Our producer is Jack Frost. Our theme music is Be My Remedy, composed and performed by House of Say. You can subscribe to the Philanthropy Masterminds podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find blogs, webcasts, and CFRE accredited webinars with our featured masterminds at DonorSearch.net, or check the show notes and descriptions.